I think there's a lot of things. I think it's a huge sense of adventure. So I don't look at my business ventures as pure business, right? They're integrated into everything that I am, that I'm interested in, that I'm passionate about. I think what really defined me, I grew up here in Kenya, when Kenya was a very different place to what it is today, very much more undeveloped, and spent an awful lot of time out in nature. And I think, I knew pretty young that was the sort of field I was going to go into. I had the same response from my parents, which was very much, you can't make money in conservation, go get yourself a proper job and a proper degree and all of that. And I left home. I took a year off before I went to college and spent it living and working in a jungle in Belize, at 17 in a hammock for 3-4 months. Just an amazing experience, and realized then that what I really wanted to do was work in forestry, but I really had no idea how to get there or really mix these pieces. And so I spent the next few years in and out of while I was doing my degree and then post my degree, taking these projects in crazy countries. I went and lived in the Philippines. I lived all over the place, and still couldn't quite figure that out. So went back to school and did a master's at Yale, and that was really defining. And I think the defining point for me for where I am today is that about halfway through that degree, which was at the forestry school at Yale, I realized that I was in the wrong school, and I realized that I knew everything I had the skills that I could teach myself forestry. There was no point spending hours sitting in a classroom learning about forestry or the environmental world. And what I realized was what I really needed to do and what was really missing was this interlink between business and environment. And Yale does offer a joint degree program, but I was too late for that, and I didn't want to spend more time in school. So what I did was simply take classes from the business school. And second defining moment was I had a mentor at Yale who was a very successful businessman, New York businessman, had pulled billions off the stock markets and put it all back into a good cause. But pretty early on in my career, he sat me down and he said, Camille, as someone who wants to change the world, you have two options. You either go and you commit yourself to, living in a village or a community or one specific place, working probably for an NGO, earning not very much money, and realizing that you are going to make change, but it's going to be very small scale, and there's huge personal sacrifice that goes along with that. Or you realize that the only way to make change is with money, and that to have the ability to make change, you have to be able to talk and communicate and interact with the people who can make change. And the only way, sadly, to do that is by being influential and having money behind you and having success behind you. So he said, so your second option is you work your butt off, whether you have to work 24-hour days for however long it takes, whether they're jobs that you're interested in or not interested in, to get that success. And once you've got that success, whatever field it's in, you'll suddenly find that you can go out and achieve the things that you want to achieve simply because you've got that success and that capital behind you. What I'm doing with EcoPlanet is actually my third try. I did start 2 companies before this, and neither was successful for various reasons. You realize that actually it's not failure. I don't like to look at it as failure, right? It's a learning opportunity to make your next venture even better than the one that you've just not been successful at. And I think that's where a lot of people fail, right? They're so scared of this idea of failure. And when you're trying something new and you're developing things that are a new field, there is no such thing as failure. Each step is simply a step closer to where you want to be. And I think the second thing is really a tolerance for risk, right? I think most people are simply too scared to give up that stable day job, not sure where they go, know where their next paycheck is coming from. And I think if you really are passionate about something, you have to believe in yourself, right? So you have to believe that no matter if you fail, no matter if things around you went wrong, doesn't mean that you have to go back into that stable world. It's simply, like I said, it's simply another step to achieve what you want to achieve. I think so. There's 2 things there. It's the perseverance, and it's really a belief in what you're doing, even if it's not belief in yourself, because we all have doubts in ourselves when we fail, but a belief in what you're trying to achieve. For me, it comes from knowing that I can travel, I can be in 50 countries a year or whatever it is, but knowing that I always have something to come back to, and that's different for everyone, right? That might be the white picket fence and the job. For me, it's a very stable family life in Kenya that if things went horribly wrong, I know I could, sure, no one wants to go home and live at home at 30, but I had that stability. So I always knew that should I completely fail and have to really rethink things, I could do that. So I'm not sure. I think part of it is innate, and I think part of it is having some base that you can lean back on, and when you need to take a step back and reassess the situation. When I started EcoPlanet a year and a half ago, our initial aim was to work in Nicaragua, to focus on Nicaragua, and to come in at a national level and show the country and show government how they could turn around their current trends and do it in a way that was going to influence economic development, poverty reduction, all of these things in the country. And so I worked at this, for a number of months, and what was very obvious to me was, you can't come in at that level. You can have great plans, you know what your overall objectives are, but really the only way to do it is to prove it and to prove yourself. So at that point we changed. I said to my partners, we need to just start with one project. We need to prove how taking 1,000 hectares on the ground, developing these projects, developing a fully integrated system, doing what we say we're going to do, right? Address poverty, address economic development, bring about positive social impacts, do it at that scale. So I think that the lesson out of that is that although the big picture and the ultimate objectives are very big, you have to put your pride at the door and say, it doesn't matter for me. It doesn't matter if I'm the one doing this or not, as long as it gets done. And if I can facilitate it where I can do the first few projects or the first few achievements and then hand that over to government or other businesses or whoever, then I've succeeded. So it's really a focus. It's prove what you're trying to do at a manageable scale, and then you hope that you've proved it to an extent that it then gets taken on by other entities, whether that's government or private sector, and you've created a catalytic effect. The ultimate objective is a massive scale, global phenomenon, but that's not very realistic and not achievable. Every business that we set up on the ground, every project that we set up on the ground creates its own change. So whether I'm creating that change at a local level, at a national level, or at an international level, it's still success. Success right now is very simple. It's to provide the returns to investors that we said we were going to do in the way that we said we were going to do it. Because I have created this as a for-profit company, because we have taken a lot of investment from a lot of people, my ultimate objective is to prove those returns and to prove that they can be done in a way that's socially and environmentally responsible. Our second objective, like I said, we're trying to address this global issue of deforestation. We're not trying to do that just through reforestation. We're actually trying to create a whole new market here, which is that when I started this company, it was forestry. It's now changed 100% into bamboo, because everything I've learned in the last year and a half shows us that we can absolutely create bamboo as this timber of the 21st century. We can move away, if it's created sustainably, if the resource is managed sustainably, we can move away from all traditional hardwoods and replace almost any wood product with bamboo. So even though, I've got two different measures of success here. One, yes, absolutely, returns to my investors. Two is to develop a market in a way bottom up that is environmentally responsible. I'd be happy with 5-10 years from now to know that the bamboo market and the global demand for timber has found not a tipping point, but a point at which it's no longer destructive, and the opposite is actually constructive. So it's being developed in areas where the trend over the last 20 years has been deforestation. We reversed that to a point where degraded land is used for sustainable bamboo. And the technology that we're working very hard to develop right now, because we are a fully integrated company, and that's a whole other part of it, has become commonplace. And we've grown into, at the moment, the sector is about 1% of the global timber sector. My legacy, I would be very happy if in 10 years, 15 years, 20 years, we saw bamboo as taking the major share of that global timber market.